It's amazing how the tide has changed in here when a local election comes along, or a European election. It wouldn't be allowed to mention the word migrant or debates here all the last 8-10 months. So our motion was voted down last week opposing the Migration Pact. I saw you, Minister of Justice, told Sean Cogan, Senator Cogan today, told me last week that you wouldn't publish the Attorney General's advice or indeed interdepartmental advice and the questions that we have about this Migration Pact. Something that took 8 years gestation in the European Parliament and the Commission, and we expect it to come back in here next week and we might get a few extra hours. We had committee for 3 hours the first day, 2 weeks ago. We had committee last week where we saw the usual suspects rounded up to bring him in to answer questions and tell us all that we were so well off, we should have more and more migration, all the NGOs. When are you going to muzzle the NGOs and try and get them out of your way and stop taking up all the money, $6 billion are costing, to tell us, give us all an extra last week of committee? We had no officials from the Department of Justice to answer questions. That's what legal scrutiny is about, or pre-legislative scrutiny. So this is a farce, and I'm calling on you to have a proper and meaningful debate here and publish all the AG and departmental advice as well, which we know you have. Did you learn anything from the referendum? You might have got rid of your Taoiseach as a fall guy, where you withheld information from the public. You're doing it now again with this.
Anybody else? No. Taoiseach, please.
Well, thanks very much. So just to be very clear, what we did in Mount Street did have a very positive impact. 290 more people got accommodation, got access to sanitation, and we managed to avert a near public health emergency. And I'm very pleased with that multi-agency response, very pleased, and I continue to believe it was the right action to take. I became Taoiseach 4 weeks ago. I took charge of this situation. There had been, in my view, a tacit acceptance by many state agencies that the situation in Mount Street could just continue, was just a new norm. That wasn't right. I thought there was a consensus in relation to this House. Good action was taken by good government in terms of the work of agencies, and I welcome that. It is absolutely true that a situation has now arisen in relation to the Grand Canal. And I'm telling you, like I told you last week in this House, I stood here and told you we'd deal with Mount Street. I'm telling you now we'll deal with Grand Canal. Action will be taken, and I accept your bona fides in relation to this, Deputy Batchik, and knowing that I think it's in your constituency as well. So we can't have, though, and I need to say this, we have to have a broader discussion about migration that isn't just about accommodation. Because if it's just solely one about accommodation, we will find ourselves in a situation where we'll provide more accommodation, and that accommodation will fill up. We also need to be very honest in relation to this, because we now have some parties in this House talking about not being in favour of open borders. Deputy MacDonald, you used to say that there was no such thing as an open borders policy. I'd like you to identify for me which open border on the island of Ireland you'd like to now close, because it didn't come up in my conversations in Belfast last week, and the government has worked with you and others on the Common Traveller. So your local election candidates are delivering leaflets promising that you will end open border policy. I don't know what that means. Can you please explain it? So when we have... There's a video of the very fine deputy beside you saying you're against it. So I look forward to the debate we'll have in this House in relation to open border policy, because there aren't open. The only open borders that...
To do with the order of business.
The only...
No.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on here.
You can't. Sorry, it's not in order.
I think even the rest of the opposition think it's true.
It's not in order to accuse the Taoiseach of telling untruths. It's not in order. So resume your seat, please.
Well, let me try.
Resume your seat.
You're in the video.
Will you resume your seat? Deputy O'Leary, let the whole... Will you please resume your seat? Deputy... Deputy, will you resume your seat? Thank you.
I'll rephrase. The Sinn Féin deputy sitting beside Deputy MacDonald appears in a video on the plinth offering to close open borders, and I want to know which open borders are against, because you can't go around, because in a desperate attempt to keep the coalition, to keep your coalition of opposition together, you're trying to play to people's worst fears. We need an honest debate around migration. We need an honest debate around migration, and that's what we're going to actually have. In relation to the triple lock legislation, I should just say to Deputy Smith, and you might advise Ceann Comhairle, I don't believe there's ever been a bill that's come before this House that wasn't debated. That's not how this House works. Of course there'll be plenty of debate. There isn't legislation to share with the House yet, because the Taoiseach got permission to draft legislation. So we're happy to have a debate in relation to migration, but the next substantive debate should be on the Migration Pact, and I look forward to that too.